Good afternoon, it's Dr. Birch here. I'm excited to be here in San Antonio. I'd show you the hotel view, but there's not much to see. A demolished building, lots of sun, lots of trees, and lots of flat ground here in Texas. I'm attending the Society for the Advancement of Sexual Health conference, and this morning we had a keynote on mindfulness. And I'll probably be leading you through some of the exercises we learned, but I won't. I will spare you what that might be like if I did it via video. So I hope you all had a good week, and I hope that you're excited about being in class today. And I've asked Johnny to facilitate this, so he'll be running the video and the instructions for today. So we're going to do a few things today. We're going to talk about this outline, which I don't know, I didn't really mean for you to watch this part, but I lost track of where I'm at. So basically we will be talking about the discussion question about classroom confidentiality and email etiquette. We'll be talking about CAMPT and BBS. We'll talk about Rogers, and we will have you folks talk about your experience with your first skills practice session. So I think at this point I'll go ahead and have you push pause, and then you can work through some of the things that are on the agenda there, and I'll see you back here in a few minutes. So I'm assuming you're pushing pause right now, and I'll just wait a moment so that once you get that done, we'll start up here after at the next video. So that was video segment 1, and you'll come back with video segment 2. Okay, video segment 2. What is video segment 2? Confidentiality email. You should have had the discussions about confidentiality email. I just wanted to say a few notes about that. A couple of things to keep in mind are the use of email is generally not, I guess, encrypted, and somebody who has some tech background will have to help us here. But I think it's important with clients that you set that up off the bat, and most agencies these days are just not allowing email communication. I think that's probably a mistake in many cases. I've had run around with doctors trying to get records and different things, and I'm like, can't you just email me it? Can't I just sign it and send it back to you? No, it has to be faxed. Well, I don't have a fax machine. So I think it's appropriate to have a waiver or have a clause in your confidentiality agreement with clients that allows you to say, if you would like to opt out of email communication because it isn't secure and it isn't guaranteed, then please do so. But otherwise, I'll assume it's okay to email, or maybe you want to have an whatever the opposite of what I just said is, where you say, there's opt-in, which is if you sign here, then I can email you, and then there's opt-out, which means I will assume that you don't mind communicating by email unless you tell me. And this goes back to last week when we talked about the importance of protecting information and whether you're going to allow clients to ask clinical questions via email. But I just want to highlight that for you so that you know that as you go over time and get ready to start practicing over the next 2 years, that you're aware of the need to deal with that. Perhaps by 2 years from now they'll have easy, secure email. I can't imagine somebody's not working on that, or that it's not already available for a fee. As far as email etiquette is concerned, I think it's also valuable. Many of us maybe don't need to be reminded of these things, but in today's world, when you're interacting with other colleagues and professionals in a formal setting, it is appropriate to use punctuation and spelling and not, are you going to the meeting today? LOL. Hope our doofy boss isn't going to be there, Use full sentences, use punctuation, capitalization, it just makes for a clearer and more understandable professional environment. I really like the guidelines that were given in the document that you read over, the PowerPoint from Purdue, and I think it's a good rule of thumb. I counted it up, and I can't remember exactly, but it seems like I currently have, there it is, I have 48 students that I'm teaching this semester, 16 students who I taught last semester and I will teach next semester and who I still stay in touch with. Probably approximately 100 advisees, students who are in the program. I may not have them in class right now, but they are my advisees. 5 close colleagues, 15 near colleagues, and over 100 extended network colleagues that I interact with on a regular basis. So you can imagine that my email can get pretty gunked up. I go out of town for a conference and I come back and I have 150 emails. So it's very helpful if those emails are clear and to the point, and generally reserved for informing colleagues of things. I think it's important to use email to inform colleagues of quick things, changes in meeting times, new events, that sort of thing. I think it's also useful to ask what I call quick questions. So if you as a student, for example, have a quick question, hey, when was that due, or whatever, perhaps you can use the Facebook page you're creating. Check eCollege. Oh, it's not clear. I'm the first to admit I'm not always clear. In spite of my obsession about being clear, I fail. So send me a quick email. I don't mind. Hey, when was that due, or what did you want on this? Oftentimes, perhaps this is not efficacious of me, but I will ignore your email and I'll instead send out an email to everybody. And then I sometimes forget to say, by the way, that was your answer. You inspired that email I sent out to the class. That happened just this week. A student emailed me, was this due, or what were we supposed to do? And I just said, here it is, have fun. So I think that it's important to do quick questions by email. If you have a question that requires, a paragraph to answer, then just come by my office. You guys are a Friday cohort. I'm in my office until 1 o'clock when we teach. You can come in before your 9 a.m. class or at lunch. Just pop by during my open hours and see if you can get an answer. If you want an answer to a question that's going to take me a page to answer, then set up an appointment with me. So those are some guidelines I thought I would give. Another thing I think is important, a lot of times this is a pet peeve of mine, I'll email somebody and I'll say, hey, I'm emailing about this particular issue, and by the way, there's this other underlying issue, and what do you think we ought to do? 9 times out of 10, I'll get an email back that answers one but not both of the issues. And I said, well, thanks, but what about issue number 2? So I've gotten used to using outlines, and I use my hello, I hope you're doing well, and isn't it a lovely day type of stuff. Then double, insert a space, new line. I have a couple of items that I need answers from you on, colon. 1A, do you remember what time the meeting is? 1B, do I need to be at the meeting? 2A, if I am supposed to be at the meeting, would you like me to prepare some thoughts? Specifically, I've been thinking about the blah, blah, blah. Please get back to me. Thanks, Dr. Birch. So then when they write back to me, either they can insert answers right in my outline, or they can say, regarding 1A, yes. Regarding 1B, 10 o'clock, I might have reversed those. Regarding 2B, I don't think that will be necessary at this time. I know that Outlook has what's called voting buttons, which allows you to throw in a poll and say, do you want to meet at this time or that time? And then the way they answer it is they answer in the subject line. The email comes back to you, and in the subject line it says yes. I think that's helpful, but I wish they had a feature that just allowed you to insert forms and check boxes. Say, do you want me to do this or that? Check the right box. Here are 4 different meeting times that are available. Which one do you want? So anyway, I don't want to belabor the point, but it is part of becoming a professional in the field is to understand that you're going to communicate with an awful lot of people. You want to be clear, you want to be concise, and you want to be efficient, and you want to be nice. So do all of those things, and I'm sure you'll be fine. So that's the end of video segment 2. So if we take a look at where we're at, so you should have had discussion question 1 and read the email etiquette flyer, and that was video 2. And when we come back, we'll have video segment 3. So I guess at some level, you can either take a break right now and then come back and watch this video, or you can watch this now and then come back from your break. I have a workshop starting in 4 minutes, so we'll see how much I can say about BBS and CAMFT. So part of the purpose of this class is helping you get initiated into the professional establishment of marriage and family therapy. That doesn't mean that you have to give up who you are or do some weird ritual or get hazed or something. We're not going to make you push a penny with your nose or whatever they do these days. I had to do that when I was a 9th grader, 10th grader actually. I still remember that to this day. We're not going to do any of that to you, but there are a lot of professional norms, standards, and resources that are necessary to succeed as a professional. You need to find a job, you need to find a supervisor, you need to get licensed, you need to know how to deal with the state, you need to know how to get malpractice insurance, you need to know how to deal with it when a client is ticked off about a possible ethical violation or something else. So, how are you going to deal with all that? Well, fortunately, there are people who've gone before you, and there are very few professional questions of interest that you could have that somebody hasn't already thought about and worked through. So, you should have joined CAMFT by now, or you should be joining them fairly soon. But just take a look at their website and understand that there is a ton of stuff here. Educational opportunities, CEUs, certificate programs, scholarships. When you join CAMFT, you can call an attorney at any time, and they will give you free consulting on a basic situation. Just the other day, I was trying to work out a practice that I'm interested in working with. Here, how's that look? Just kidding. And she said, well, the truth is I already have 3 supervisees, and I think there's some law about how you can't have more than supervisees. I need to be supervised at first because I'm not fully licensed yet in California. And so, well, boom, I was able to go straight to CAMFT, find out information, find written documents, find references to the code, and find out exactly what needed to happen. Now, it took some time, but it was all right there. And I was about this close from calling the attorney and asking them some questions when I found a document that answered the question. So I just think it's important that you don't underestimate how difficult it is to become a licensed professional in this field. I think I lost my video for a moment there. That might have been interesting, but it's a lot of work. If you're feeling scared about all the things that you have to learn to become a therapist, you should be. There are a lot of things. Sometimes I've thought about just making an outline of everything I know, and not to boast or anything, but I'm like, that would be a long outline because of working in the field for the last, I did my degree in 1995, my master's degree. So I've been where you were at, whatever that is, 17 years ago, Did I do the math right? Yeah, 17 years ago. I've learned a lot of things in 17 years. I've had to do CEUs every year. You go to workshops. I've been in clinical experience, and the laws change, and you find out all these things. So our program is designed to provide you the foundational skills and experiences you need to be a good therapist. But it's just the beginning. Then you have a 2-year period at least of getting licensed. After you get licensed, if you want to become an AAMFT approved supervisor, that's another set of time that needs to be spent. You need a companion along the way, I guess is what I'm saying. And CAMFT is that companion, and it provides a context in which you can find colleagues. You can always find a colleague who's doing something similar to what you're doing. You can find senior colleagues who've already done what you're trying to do, and you can get assistance. And if all that didn't convince you, then I can almost guarantee you that the best way to find a job in this field is to network through CAMFT, because the movers and shakers in the field, the ones who have the money, the ones who own the clinics, the ones who are the directors, the ones who are at the forefront of clinical, ethical, legal development, they all belong to CAMFT. They're all at CAMFT meetings. They're all participants in their chapter meetings. I can't say all, but for the majority of them. So what better place to get to know them? The other advantage is that not a lot of students do that. In fact, we've received some significant compliments from CAMFT chapters that, wow, you guys have, there have been meetings where there were more of our students in the meeting than there were other members. So your presence is being felt and known. Now, CAMFT's job is to help you to navigate your field so that you can be of optimal benefit to your consumer. On the other side of things, the BBS's job is primarily to protect the consumer from, not you, but from people who don't understand how all the stuff that CAMFT is designed to teach you. So there are people out there that make bad choices, that make bad decisions. There are people out there who are malicious and malevolent and really shouldn't be practicing. There's a few of those. But mostly we're good professionals who intend to do good, but who the state needs to be assured that we are following the best practices of our profession and promoting the good. And so that is why the BBS exists, is to protect consumers from the malevolent, to protect consumers from the uninformed, and to encourage/require professionals to demonstrate that they have acquired the necessary competencies to be helpful to clients and to avoid harm. So at one sense, we can see ourselves as being at odds with the BBS because they're out to get us, But on the other sense, we look at it as, don't I really want to be helpful to my clients? And I'm sure all of us have concerns about making sure we don't harm our clients. So what are the types of situations in which we could wander as new professionals and perhaps commit a harm that we didn't realize? I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have a mother who signs up for treatment and comes and shows up with her 8-year-old son. And she says, I'm here, my son is he's really upset, he's really having a lot of issues, and it's all his dad's fault. We were divorced a year ago, and the dad is just doing everything he can to turn the kid against me. He's telling the kid lies about me, and he's really broken up about it. He's very discouraged, he's depressed, he's even had some suicidal thoughts, wishing he could just die, and then maybe his parents would get along. And through the course of the treatment, the mother, doesn't reveal any sort of obvious emotional abuse, but hints at that. And so you end up having to make a report and reporting this dad for child abuse. Well, the next thing you get is a call from an attorney who says, are you aware that the mother of this child is not the custodial parent of this child? Well, gee, no, I mean, I didn't ask. I didn't know that. Go on. I would like for you to fax me over a copy of the consent to treatment that was provided to you by my client before you treated this child in family therapy with his mother. Yeah. Let me check my files for that. Guess what? You never did that. You did not realize that legally, to provide therapy to this child, you needed the consent of the custodial parent. And in this scenario, the mother, I'm making it that she had no joint custody or anything. She was there on visitation. She brought the kid to you when she had the kid for visitation. So you didn't keep the law. You didn't get consent of the father. And now the father's contention is that the mother has brought the child into therapy, lied to the therapist about things he did, called the state, got an abuse allegation filed. Now the state has come in and has threatened to take the kid out of the home because they're worried about the kid's well-being with the dad. And the kid, whom you had been trying to help to navigate all of this garbage, is now doubly garbaged because he is being threatened that he'll be removed from his father's custody if his dad doesn't get with the program. And now his dad's even madder at the mom, and the mom's even madder at the dad. So the primary thing you're going to think when you get off the phone with that attorney is, crap, I'm screwed, man. I'm going to get sued. And you know what? You're right. You're at risk of being sued. But the primary problem is you harmed that child by not following the best practices that we have developed as a profession and which we're required by law to follow in this particular case, that have been developed by people who've dealt with that very same scenario. So that is the purpose of the BBS, is to make explicit into law and into regulations about licensure those protocols and responses that we've developed as a profession. It's not exhaustive, and there are chances that you will run into a situation, and in fact, most of the time, when it happens that somebody gets sued over a new situation, that is the impetus for adding lines to the ethical code. So understand that the BBS is there to help you because they've done all the work of taking the law and translating it into specific requirements that you need to follow so that you can be sure that you're following the best practices of the profession, which A, ensures that you're doing good for your client, B, minimizes the probability of harm, and C, protects you in the case of a lawsuit, because then you can say, I followed the BBS guidelines on that, I followed the BBS requirements on that, I followed the California law on that, or whatever the laws of whatever state. Incidentally, the practice of marriage and family therapy is, I believe, now licensed in all 50 states and Canada. I don't believe it is in Mexico. And I believe there are a few countries that, I think England has licensure for MFTs. So if you go to a place where they don't have licensure, then you're kind of on your own, and you're going to have to rely on that code of ethics. And CAMPT or AMPT, AAMFTs, the American Association of MFTs, there are also some international associations. You're going to want to follow those to the letter, because then if you ever do get sued, you can say, A, I didn't break any state or federal laws in my country, and B, I followed the ethical practices of my profession. It's still possible you can lose a lawsuit in that situation because the judge basically says, well, even though there isn't a law, you did, they rule, they set a precedent that this is not right for you to do this. And that causes ethics committees and board committees to come back and revise that. So let's just peruse real quickly the BBS website. It's bbs.ca.gov. And the most important thing you're going to want here are first, under applicant registrant, you go over to MFT intern, MFT. You are currently designated an MFT student. When you become enrolled in practicum, you become an MFT trainee. When you graduate but are not yet licensed, you are an MFT intern. And when you're licensed, you are now a marriage and family therapist, licensed marriage and family therapist. So they'll give you some key things here that will come up for you over time. You'll want to keep track of those updates. But there's right here, navigating the MFT licensing process is something you probably won't be too interested in until you start to get into practicum. But I just want to make you aware of it. There's a bunch of stuff here, as you can see, that you can read through, pay attention to. And then the other most important part of this, which is probably a little more relevant for now, is, let's see, navigating. There's a link for MFT forms and publications. Go to MFT related, and most of this again is not too relevant until you become a trainee. However, it will be important for your law and ethics course, which I believe you have next semester. You'll probably have to be reading and studying some of these documents. So in conclusion, we want to do good and we want to avoid harm. And when it's not avoidable, we want to minimize it. Those are the core principles underlying our profession and values. And CAMP will help you to know how to set up a practice that does that, and how to navigate the myriad issues, both directly within patients as well as collegial relationships and finding a job. And BBS will help you to understand the guidelines and the laws that you need to make sure you follow so that you can practice in an ethical way. Incidentally, I would think many of you are probably already ready to start seeing clients at some level. I think you could do good work with clients because you're good people and you know how to listen and you know how to give people an environment in which they can explore their issues. So at one level, I think you could do good work in that setting. However, no matter how skilled you are as a clinician, there are just a big long list of to-dos and not to-dos and checklists that you have to be aware of, where it wouldn't be safe for you to be a clinician from legal harm or from potentially harming a client until you do have a grasp on those things. So that's how important this stuff is that it's another bookend in your training. The one bookend is theories, and skills, and conceptualization, and being able to actually do therapy, which many of you, I would think, I can't say I think you're ready to do therapy, otherwise why should we put you through 2 more years of school before we let you do so? But you're ready to be helpful to people and to sit in a room and do good work. But what we're filling in the first books in that are skills, theories, conceptualization, assessment, diagnosis, treatment, etc. And the other bookend on that is just ethics and legal requirements and best practices in managing the many issues that come up in treatment. So that is the end of video segment number 3. So at this point you'll be watching the Rogers video for approximately 1 hour and then having discussion about that right here on the agenda. And then after that I'll do some thoughts I have about Rogers, thoughts on my own interviewing skills, and then you can have a discussion about how your interviews went. So I'm trying to keep this fairly short. I see that I'm up to about half an hour, so I'll try to keep this next segment a little bit short, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to see if I can push pause on my end because I need to take care of something. I'm not going to pause. I don't want to screw it up. So, push pause, and I'll see you back for segment 4. Okay, segment 4. So you should have watched the Rogers video by now and had some, I think, discussion about that. I just wanted to share a couple thoughts on Rogers. I've told you this before, I'll just reiterate that I just have a strong testimony, if you will, of the importance of genuinity and warmth and unconditional positive regard. That doesn't mean we condone abusive behaviors, but we try to understand where our clients are coming from and empathize with them and to exhibit genuine positive regard. And there's certain behaviors that people who are doing that do. For example, telling a man that you're going to have to report him for child abuse and then ending the session. You can say things like, I understand how stressful this is to you, that this is going to have to be reported. And I understand that you're going to be angry with me. But you know what, I want you to know that I understand how difficult it must be for you, and I can empathize with the stress you feel that you say contributes to you losing your temper with your children. And I'm confident that you are the kind of person who wants to put that behind you, and I'm going to be here to help you. And this legal intervention, if we use it correctly, can be helpful to you. I know it's going to be stressful, but you're a good person and you can do this. You can get through this, and I'm going to help you. That's very different than a real hardline investigative stance that says, well, I'm sorry, sir, we're going to have to report this. And then the guy gets pissed off and starts complaining and criticizing you, and you get defensive and say, well, it's not my fault. You're the one that broke the law after all. I can't do anything about it. It's a requirement by law. So we're just going to have to schedule an appointment and talk about it. I got my next client coming in, so see ya. I doubt anybody would be that blunt, but you get the difference between these two. So I really hope that you will you'll learn to reflect on who you are and how you come across to people. I really want you to make sure that you complete that part of the assignment for the skills practice, that you actually force yourself to sit down and listen or watch to yourself for that interview. And you're going to learn a few things. So do the best you can with that and make it work. My computer is overloaded. I don't know why it's overloaded now, and it wasn't a minute ago, but whatever. So, I'm not sure if this is working anymore, so I'm going to be brief. I'd also like to make a note that I think many of you may come in and say, oh man, I spent all this money to come to this program, and they talked about diversity, and the first thing they show me is some old white guy from the 50s. I get that, all right? But I think it's important to realize that what Rogers did is he provided the field of psychotherapy with the most important tool we have for being culturally sensitive and for working with people of different races and different cultures, different religious beliefs, different philosophical beliefs, different behavioral choices, different sexual orientations, different political persuasions. Because really at the foundation, we can criticize somebody and say, hey, that guy don't know anything about this, that, or the other. I mean, I don't know a lot about what it's like to be a transvestite, for example, because I've never met one, at least not that I know of. So if I have a client come in who appears to be a woman, and I find out that they're male, but that they cross-dress, but they don't consider themselves transgender, nor are they moving towards becoming transgender, I'm not going to understand anything about what that's like. But if I exhibit warmth, unconditional positive regard, empathy, and make deliberate efforts to understand their internal frame of reference and to convey to them that I do, and to convey to them that I don't understand. Rogers would say, I have to be real about that. This is really unusual. I haven't dealt with this. Some of these things seem a little strange to me. Like I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. But I'm trying to understand where you're coming from because I really want to help you. I understand you're suffering and you're having difficulties, and I promise you to learn what I need to learn to be helpful to you. And so, same thing with a racial group. If I get a client who is Asian and speaks English only partly well, I think it's important for me to be real with them and let them know I don't understand your culture, but I care about you, and I'm committed to being helpful to you, to assisting you in whatever way I can. And so, whatever we may say about cross-cultural training and the need to sort of learn all these complicated things about the culture we're treating, it always begins with the foundation of trust, and that trust can only be developed in the context of those factors that Roger spoke of. So I want you to know how important I think that is. I want you to know how much I strive to exhibit that towards you, because there's many of you there, and we're all different. We come from different backgrounds. We have different countries, different states we lived in, different sexual orientations, perhaps, different political persuasions. I don't know what all the differences there might be between you and me, but there's one thing that is very similar about you and me, and that is that we're human beings sharing this human condition. And part of the human condition is that we don't understand each other always. One of my pet peeves in society is the manner in which the political discourse in this country is between people who are middle left thinkers, who listen to talk shows, who criticize and argue against the far right's policies, and middle right people who listen to talk show hosts who criticize the far left policies. So they pit their moderate policies against the other side's radical or ridiculous policies that get espoused. But that these two groups never talk. And these two groups never talk. That creates so much misunderstanding and chaos in our world. And I think more good would happen if you took people who, for example, support gay marriage, but don't really understand the right's perspective on that, and people who oppose gay marriage but don't really understand the left's perspective, and got them together and said, why don't you talk and understand where each other is coming from, and then work together to find a solution that's mutually agreeable. I mean, how many marriages would succeed if all I ever did was listen to a reporter tell me all the crazy things my spouse does, but I never really interacted with my spouse? And if she was doing the same thing, marriage succeeds when two partners come together and understand one another and build upon shared dreams and shared solutions. And it's the same thing in our society at large. And so I think Rogers is still incredibly relevant, and I hope that you will benefit from that. So I encourage you, as you review your experience with your first practice interview, to say it. Did I feel real? Did I act real? Why not? How can I improve it? So go have a good discussion on that. I look forward to seeing you all next week. I can't recall at the moment what we're doing next week, but I'm sure it'll be fun. So thanks for your attention. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.